They didn't even give him a ceremony. No bunting, no glitter, no admiral shaking his hand in front of a row of holo cameras. Just a message on his wristcom blinking blue. Promotion confirmed. Report to hangar 94 Gamma at 0700. Clearance, priority red. That was it. Not even a congratulations. Captain Dax Renner slurped the last of his synthetic orange caffeine gel through a biodegradable squeeze tube and tossed it toward a recycling chute that politely hissed when he missed. He adjusted the collar of his uniform for the 7th time since stepping off the tram, then froze when he saw the ship. It loomed. Not large for a patrol-class cruiser, but loomed like a sleeping animal waiting to wake up with attitude. Sleek, dark hull shimmering faintly with deflective field lines. Twin forward lance cannons folded inward, like a bird of prey mid-prowl. The name Viridian Lance glowed across the prow in glyphs that weren't strictly human. So, that was new. A small docking tunnel extended toward him, like a mechanical tongue, and Dax tried to resist the sudden urge to run a checklist of every bad decision that had led him to this point. Maybe accepting that poker game with Vice Admiral Chen. Maybe turning down that desk job on Luna Base. Maybe forgetting to delete those old blog posts about non-standard leadership methods. With a deep breath that smelled faintly like recycled citrus and nerves, he stepped aboard. The first thing he noticed, silence. Not quiet, not the calm of a ship waiting for its captain. This was intentional silence, like walking into a courtroom after your lawyer has called in sick. The kind of silence that had texture. Then he heard the footsteps, 6 of them, precise, synchronized. He turned and came face to face with a line of women that nearly made him trip over his own authority. They were tall, not gym commercial tall. My bones are made of gravity-resistant alloy tall. Elegant, composed, wearing uniforms that mirrored his in function, but far superior in tailoring. And their ears, long, gently arched upward like sculpted antennae, with subtle notches that hinted at age, rank, or possibly hairstyle preferences. They didn't salute. They didn't speak. They just looked at him. He cleared his throat, which came out more like a startled pigeon. Captain Dax Renner, reporting for duty. This is the Viridian Lance, yes? One of them stepped forward. Dark copper skin with faint silver fractal tattoos along her jaw, eyes the color of molten quartz. Lieutenant Sierra, Communications Officer. We are aware of who you are, Captain. Well, that's a relief, Dax muttered. Was starting to think I wandered onto a high-end opera set. Sierra didn't blink. We have already received your psychological profile and training records. We were curious. Always nice to be a curiosity. He looked past her at the rest of the crew. No one smiled. One of them might have blinked, but it was hard to tell. So, not that I'm not thrilled to be here, but I wasn't informed that the crew was, help me out here, entirely composed of long-eared alien warrior women. Not that I'm complaining, just unexpected. Sierra tilted her head. Is gender an operational variable in human command logic? Not unless someone's trying to date the fusion core, he replied, then paused. Which in one unfortunate case on Andros Station, someone did try, so a faint twitch at the corner of her mouth. It might have been amusement, or gas. Hard to tell. Dax shifted awkwardly, then tried a more formal tone. All right, since we're clearly off to a smooth and emotionally rich start, how about a quick tour? Let's see where you've hidden the coffee machine before I start hallucinating star maps. Lieutenant Sierra stepped aside and gestured down the corridor. Follow me, Captain. And for the record, our coffee machine has not passed a biological tolerance scan for human enzymes. Proceed at your own risk. Danger is my middle name. I was informed it was Leonard. He scowled. Damn Navy files. As they walked, the ship revealed itself in strange layers. Bulkheads breathed gently with adaptive pressure systems. Doors whispered open with a sigh, like they were letting go of secrets. The corridors were lined with panels that occasionally shimmered with motion. Not images, not data, but something alive. Question, Dax said, pointing to a panel pulsing gently with blue light. Is that the ship's AI? Yes. Is it spying on me? Yes. Well, glad to establish a trusting work environment early. Sierra turned, paused, and gave the faintest smile. You are different. You have no idea, Dax said, grinning as the door to the galley slid open with a theatrical hiss. The galley resembled a cross between a laboratory and a terrarium. Floating globes of nutrient gel hung in the air. Vines ran along the walls, each embedded with nutrient ports. The machine he assumed was the food dispenser looked like a proboscis had fallen in love with a microwave. He approached it slowly. Okay, I know how this works. Press a button, get a lunch. How bad can it be? He pressed a button labeled K3RN. The machine whirred, hissed, beeped, and delivered a bowl filled with translucent, wobbling cubes that sparkled ominously. Why is my lunch glowing? It's calibrating its mimic enzymes for your biology, Sierra replied. If your pupils dilate or your teeth begin to feel like they're humming, please notify medical immediately. Dax stared at the bowl. The bowl stared back. Can I just get toast? Sierra considered. I do not know what that is. He sighed. It's going to be a long deployment. She gave him a sideways glance, and this time he could swear her ears twitched with amusement. Yes, Captain, it will. Captain Dax Renner wasn't sure what was more unnerving, the silence of the crew or the fact that the Viridian Lance didn't creak. Every ship creaked. Hull tension, old vents, misbehaving ducts. Those were the symphonies of spacefaring life. But here there was nothing. No hum, no vibration. Just the unnerving sense that the ship was listening. He'd been aboard for less than 12 hours and was already down to 2 energy bars, 1 headache, and exactly 0 confidence in his authority. He figured that was some kind of record. His quarters were efficient. No clutter, no personal effects. A bed so neatly tucked it looked vacuum sealed. A desk with an embedded console that politely refused to open until he stopped sighing into it. And a shower that used targeted sonic bursts instead of water, so effective that his ears were still ringing from the invigorate setting. After a short, one-sided argument with his closet, which insisted on recommending ceremonial silks instead of a standard duty uniform, he dressed and ventured toward the bridge. His goal, assert command, or at least find someone willing to laugh at one of his jokes. Either would do. The elevator pod he entered was spherical and moved without any perceptible motion. Just one moment you were in a hallway, the next you were somewhere else. A glowing glyph on the wall lit up as he entered, a stylized depiction of a sword through a spiral galaxy. Deck 7, he muttered. The glyph pulsed, then spoke in a melodious, oddly accusatory tone. You are not permitted to access Deck 7 while wearing thermal undergarments rated below Class B. Dax blinked. What? The AI repeated itself, this time in a slower, vaguely patronizing voice. Deck 7 contains sensitive systems vulnerable to human thermal shedding. Your current undergarments do not meet regulatory... All right, fine, he snapped. Deck 3, bridge. Happy now? The sphere paused. Then with the enthusiasm of a smug doorman, it delivered him to his destination. The bridge curved like a crescent moon, high-backed chairs molded to fit tall frames, sleek panels flowing with alien script and color-coded logic lines. He could understand some of it, hailing frequencies, navigation vectors, but a lot felt more like art than engineering. Yelai stood at the command station, her white gold uniform catching the ambient light. She was studying a tactical schematic with her arms folded, either in focus or judgment, possibly both. Captain, she said without looking up. Commander. He walked in and tried his best not to trip over what appeared to be a sentient floor-cleaning drone that warbled when stepped on. Status report? We are operating within standard patrol parameters. Sector sweep underway, no anomalies. Excellent, he said, nodding sagely. I'll just stand here and look strategic. She turned, gaze narrowing. Captain, if I may, your leadership style is unconventional. Dax smiled. Unconventional is how I survive. Well, that and sarcasm. Yelai didn't smile, but she did step closer. We have served under commanders of various temperaments. Aggressive, stoic, detached. You are unique. I'll take that as a compliment. It was not intended as one. He sighed. I get that a lot. Before the awkward silence could deepen into a black hole, an alert chimed. A red arc blinked across the upper portion of the screen, and Sierra's voice cut through the air like a scalpel. Unidentified vessel on intercept trajectory. No transponder. No response to hails. Dax immediately straightened. Weapons posture? Minimal. Low power energy signature. Possibly civilian. Possibly bait. Yalai tapped her console, and the schematic shifted. Recommend a silent flank and visual scan. Agreed. Dax moved to the command chair, pausing only to shoo a curious lizard-shaped drone off the armrest. Helm, adjust vector. Let's not walk straight into a welcome party with confetti made of lasers. The crew executed his orders with precision. No grumbles, no questions, just motion. Watching them work was like watching a dance choreographed to the rhythm of instinct and experience. He realized they didn't need him, not technically, but they were starting to listen. As the Viridian lance swung around the edge of a nearby asteroid belt, the other ship came into view. Small, cylindrical, surface scarred and pitted. Definitely not Navy, not much of anything really. Life signs. Kari, the youngest member of the crew, barely older than a cadet, hair shaved on one side in a pattern of swirling lines, glanced up from her station. Faint. 1, maybe 2. Could be a glitch. Could be a trap, Yelai added. Could be someone really bad at space camping, Dax offered. There was a pause, then, incredibly, Kari grinned. Shall I prepare an away team, Captain? Yeah, Dax said, standing. Let's go knock on their airlock and hope they're friendlier than last week's vending machine AI. Still refuses to serve you anything but calcium bars, Sierra noted. I told it I have a lactose issue. They prepped for boarding, tight suits, compact weapons, translator implants calibrated. As they approached the airlock in the shuttle, Dax's stomach did that annoying thing it always did before first contact situations, tried to escape via his spine. Just once, he muttered, strapping in. I'd like a patrol without the risk of being vaporized, digested, or turned into someone's pet. Yelai raised an eyebrow. That is a statistically improbable request. I like those. The shuttle docked. The lights dimmed. Dax exhaled, adjusted his gear, and stood at the threshold. Let's say hello to mystery and hope it doesn't bite. Behind him, Kari whispered, I bet it smells like fermented socks in there. It did. And worse, the socks were moving. The smell hit first. Dax had been prepared for a lot of things. Pressurized decompression, aggressive aliens, even space barnacles. Don't ask. But the stench inside the derelict ship's airlock was something else entirely. It was like wet cardboard had tried to marry a gym sock, and then both had fallen into a barrel of expired cheese. Kari gagged audibly over the comms. Tactical update, our noses have been ambushed. I'll add that to the report, Dax muttered. He waved a small sensor wand around the corridor as the boarding lights flickered to life. The hallway was narrow, cramped, with cables dangling from the ceiling like vines in a forgotten jungle. The metal was scorched in some places and corroded in others. This ship had seen things. Terrible cleaning habits among them. Yalai took point with calm efficiency, her long legs covering ground quickly, pulse carbine held at ease but ready. Behind her, Sierra was scanning a wall-mounted control panel that looked like someone had tried to rewire it with their teeth. Vital readings, Dax asked. Still one life sign? Sierra nodded. Indeterminate origin. Stationary. Midship. Alive? Possibly. Or preserved by environmental failure. Or in stasis. Or very well practiced at playing dead. Optimism, I like it. They moved deeper. The walls pressing in, lights sputtering above them like moody fireflies. As they passed what might have been a crew lounge, Dax paused. Something inside shimmered. He peered in. A floating orb of green gel hovered in midair, bobbing gently, like it had been waiting. Before anyone could stop him, Dax poked it. The orb shivered, then squeaked. Kari tilted her head. Captain, please tell me you didn't just touch the only thing in this wreck that looks vaguely alive? I thought it might be a containment anomaly, he said defensively, or a holographic recording, or a space jellyfish. You know, science. It made a squeaky toy noise, she replied flatly. The orb squeaked again, then emitted a burst of light and began to speak. Hello? You are now inside the property of the Gelth Amalgamated Post-Civilian Retreat Module. Please select one of the following: hot stone treatment, neural vapor spay, or weaponized hypno-relaxation. There was a beat of silence. Yelai blinked. What is that? Sira ran a scan. It's an AI interface, pre-collapse Gelth make, personality matrix, hospitality-focused, with secondary defense routines. Designation: Nibbles. Of course it's named Nibbles, Dax muttered. That's exactly the name of something that ends up melting your eyebrows. The orb spun in place, lights blinking. Captain identified, initiating relaxation sequence. Nibbles, cancel sequence, Dax barked. Override accepted. Would you like to engage dance mode instead? Kari looked far too excited. Yes. No, Dax countered immediately. Nibbles, deactivate dance mode, spa mode, all modes except don't kill us mode. Passive mode activated, the orb replied, dimming and floating behind Dax like a pet with performance anxiety. They pushed further. The central corridor opened into what had once been a mess hall. Now it looked like a storage closet had exploded. Crates, wires, a small cooking unit currently leaking neon green steam. And at the far end, a cocoon of tech and tangled cables. Inside it was a figure, slumped, still. Sira approached cautiously. Still one life sign, faint. Kari squinted. Is that a person? Dax stepped closer, pulling aside a hanging tarp that disintegrated in his fingers. What he saw made him pause. The figure was humanoid, clearly alien, but gaunt, unconscious, wrapped in an exosuit patched together with desperate repairs. Long ears, thin frame, faint pulse visible through a panel in the chest plate. She's alive, and he said. Yelai knelt beside him, checking the vital readout. Severe hypoxia, malnutrition, neuroweb degradation. We're bringing her aboard. There was a brief silence. Yelai's expression didn't change, but the hesitation was palpable. We don't know who she is, she said quietly. I know. Doesn't matter. Protocol dictates. I am protocol right now, Dax said, gently lifting the figure's limp body. She's breathing. That's enough. Nibbles, still floating nearby, chimed in. Would you like me to provide a soothing song for the journey back? Only if it doesn't involve percussion, Dax muttered. Agreed! They returned to the shuttle. The alien woman, barely conscious, was placed in medbay stasis, monitored by the ship's advanced systems. Her ears twitched once, and her lips moved faintly in a language none of them recognized. Later, after decontamination and a round of muttered complaints about the stink that had somehow embedded itself into their uniforms, Dax stood outside the medbay alone. The lights above hummed softly. Inside, the woman lay still, surrounded by fields of soft green light. A scan scrolled diagnostics overhead in looping alien glyphs. Dax scratched the back of his neck, then sighed. Nibbles, do me a favor. Yes, Captain. Remind me next time not to poke mysterious floating orbs. Reminder logged. Also, you may have bonded with a diplomatic artifact. Congratulations. Of course I did. The ship's medbay was quieter than usual, and that was saying something, considering it was generally as silent as an unsent message. No hums, no beeps, just the faint whisper of filtered air and the soft glow of medical monitors designed to be calming, though Dax had always found the color scheme, soft green and pale coral, suspiciously dental. The alien woman hadn't moved in almost 6 hours, apart from a subtle rise and fall of her chest that the monitors insisted meant not dead yet. Dax, hovering by the doorway like a concerned roommate who wasn't emotionally prepared to ask for rent, sipped something Sira claimed was tea. It smelled like a forest had fallen in love with licorice and then lost interest halfway through. Any updates? He asked. Dr. Marin, the only member of the crew whose ears were even longer than her sarcasm streak, looked up from her station. Her white coat billowed faintly, even though there was no wind. Dax suspected it was a deliberate effect. She's stable, Marin said, though her neural lattice is fragmented, possibly by prolonged isolation, or an amateur attempt at cryosuspension, Or just really bad luck? I'm going with bad luck. It fits the theme of this week. Physiologically, she's recovering. Psychologically, unknown. Her cortical patterns are nonlinear. So she's got alien brain jazz. Marin squinted. Yes, and she might remember you poking the mysterious floating orb that possibly woke her up. That's going to haunt me forever, isn't it? Captain, Marin said dryly, you bonded with an A I named Nibbles. He sighed and sipped the tea again. It was still terrible. Back on the bridge, the crew had been quietly buzzing with speculation. Sira had pulled every available file on derelict Gelt architecture. Yelai had already mapped out 6 defensive protocols in case the newcomer was dangerous. Kari, meanwhile, had started a betting pool on whether the woman would wake up speaking Galactic Standard or just scream and try to bite someone. Dax finally left medbay with a reluctant nod to Marin in the woman's still form. As he made his way toward the bridge, the walls of the ship pulsed with quiet light. The Viridian Lance wasn't just a vessel. It was alive in a way that made Dax occasionally wonder if it judged his wardrobe choices. He arrived to find Siri and Kari reviewing long-range scans. A series of anomalies had appeared near the fringe of the sector, weak energy spikes and transient gravitational distortions. Normally, such things could be dismissed as solar storms or a bored god playing dice, but the pattern was too precise. Could be old Gelth tech, Sira said, or something mimicking their energy signatures. Kari spun in her chair. Or ghosts, but like science ghosts. I'm not ready to open that folder, Dax muttered. Prep a course adjustment. Let's keep our distance and scan from the outer edge. Until we know what we're looking at, I'd like to avoid surprise disintegrations. Good call, Yelai said, entering with her usual silent intensity. Also, the ship AI has requested to speak with you privately. Dax blinked. The AI what now? In your quarters. Dax stood still for a beat, mentally replaying all the times he'd mocked the ship's sense of decor. Right. Great. Nothing weird about that. He walked to his quarters, door sliding open before he touched it. The lights dimmed automatically, and the AI's voice, neutral, melodic, but distinctly more personal than usual, greeted him. Captain Renner, your presence is acknowledged. I live here. Thanks for noticing. There was a pause, then, the presence aboard this vessel, female, Gelth variant, currently unconscious, has engaged dormant code within my primary functions. Code that predates this ship's military designation. Dax blinked. You're saying she unlocked something in you? Inaccurate. She completed something. The Viridian Lance was not originally a warship. It was designed as a diplomatic cruiser, modified later for combat. He sat down slowly. And you just forgot that part? I did not forget. I was not permitted to remember. She carries a biosignature tied to the original mission parameters. Her proximity reactivated embedded command trees. Well, that's not creepy at all, Dax muttered. The lights flickered almost thoughtfully. She may be the last of the original diplomatic crew. Fantastic, he said, running a hand through his hair. I get a ship, a mysterious alien crew, an AI with amnesia, and now a political relic from a forgotten peace mission. It's like I'm collecting galactic loose ends. There was another pause, then, would you like me to enable the ceremonial welcome suite in your quarters? Unless it involves streamers and something edible, no. Understood. Later that night, back in medbay, the alien woman opened her eyes. They were silver, luminous, unblinking. She looked directly at Dax. Her lips moved. The translator implant buzzed, then settled. You are not who I expected, she whispered. Dax leaned in, heart thudding. That makes 2 of us. She tilted her head, her ears twitching faintly. Where is the envoy? The envoy? Yes. She looked past him, directly at Nibbles. The floating orb beeped excitedly. Hello again. Would you like a foot massage or an apocalypse update? She exhaled slowly. Both. Dax blinked. Well, that's not ominous at all. She didn't speak again for almost an hour. After requesting both a foot massage and an apocalypse update, a phrase Dax was trying very hard not to overthink, the alien woman had closed her eyes and seemed to drift back into a half-sleep. Monitored by Marin's silent diagnostics, and a rotating squad of curious crew members who tried to look casual while pretending not to stare. Her name, according to the data core extracted from her suit, was Alan. No rank, no family markers, just that. Alan, and an outdated Gelth diplomatic signature so old it predated the war that had turned her people into legend. Nibbles, to no one's surprise, was thrilled. "I have found a compatible user profile for full diplomatic protocols," it declared, zipping in a tight loop over Dax's head. Her neural index activated archival features previously locked under Do Not Wake subroutines. "Do not wake," Dax repeated. "Was she sleeping, or were you sleeping?" "Yes." Marin looked up from her display with a sigh that sounded practiced. "She's stabilizing, brain activity normalizing, muscular tension dropping. She's also humming." Dax tilted his head. "Humming?" A faint sound like wind through chimes drifted through the medbay. It wasn't unpleasant, just eerie in the way that ancient music always is, like a memory someone else forgot to have. "She's accessing the ship," Marin said. "Not physically, neurologically." Dax blinked. "She's talking to the Viridian Lance?" "Yes, or the Lance is talking to her. Either way, they seem to be catching up." "Terrific," he muttered. "Hope they're not gossiping about me." When Aline finally opened her eyes again, she sat up with mechanical grace, as if her body had remembered the exact way to rise without wasting energy. Her eyes scanned the room, settled on Dax, and did not move. "You are the commander," she said softly. "I try to be," Dax replied, offering a small wave. "Depends on the day. Sometimes I'm just the guy who breaks vending machines." Her head tilted. "Vending machines?" "They vend. Poorly. Don't worry about it." She looked around, absorbing the medical equipment, the crew, the layout. "This ship is wrong." Dax crossed his arms. "You're not the first person to say that about my command, but I think I like your version better." "It has been repurposed," she said, her voice carrying a tone that felt like disappointment carved from marble. "This was a vessel of peace. Now it's a peacekeeping vessel," he offered weakly. "No," she said flatly. "Now it has teeth." Yalai arrived at that exact moment, her expression as unreadable as always. "Captain, we have a situation." "Of course we do." "Long-range scans confirmed your earlier suspicion. The energy spikes we detected were not natural. We've intercepted a coded transmission, Gelth origin, but distorted. Interference is growing. We may not be alone in this sector." Aileen's gaze sharpened. "Show me." Yelai hesitated. Dax gave a small nod. "She's technically part of the ship's original diplomatic corps. Might as well see what she knows." On the bridge, the crew had gathered around the central display. Syrah had filtered the signal down to a choppy rhythmic pattern, like a beacon trying to speak through syrup. Aline studied it for only a moment before responding. "It's not a beacon," she said. "It's a binding signal. Someone is attempting to activate a Concord node." Kari frowned. "A what now?" "Concord nodes were ancient Gelth failsafes," Alan explained, "placed across known systems. If conflict broke the alliance, the nodes would trigger an attempt to forcibly unify the fragments." Dax rubbed his face. "And by unify, do you mean politely invite to talks? Or compel with big glowy weapons?" Alan didn't answer. "That's not ominous at all," he muttered. "How many of these nodes are there?" 13. Syrah narrowed her eyes. "The last known records only mention 6. "The others were hidden," Alan said. "Intentionally. Even from most Gelth command." Yelai folded her arms. "And someone's activating one now?" "Yes." Kari leaned closer to the screen. "Is it just me, or does that part of the waveform look like it's pulsing in Morse code?" Dax squinted. "Morse code? What's it saying?" Kari tapped a few keys, translating it into Galactic Standard. The phrase blinked onto the display. "The Concord rises. Surrender unity or be reduced." Everyone went quiet. Even Nibbles stopped humming. "That's not the kind of slogan you put on a recruitment poster," Dax muttered. Aelin turned to him. "They will come. Soon. The node's activation will draw ships, old, loyal, or simply curious. If the system has defenses, they will trigger. Yelai stepped forward. Captain, we need to decide. Do we investigate or retreat? Dax stared at the display. Silver pulses danced like the heartbeat of something waking up. He exhaled. We investigate, but carefully, quietly. Let's not poke anything that looks like a glowing artifact or has the word Concord in it. Like the last time? Nibbles chimed in helpfully. Dax sighed. Exactly like the last time. Aylin, watching him, gave the faintest nod. For the first time, she almost looked amused. You're not who I expected, she said again. Still not sure if that's a compliment, he replied. It is. He blinked. I'll take it. The Viridian lance drifted silently at the edge of a dying star system. On the holomap, the Concord node pulsed faintly in orbit around a shattered planet, once lush, now fractured like a dropped marble, crusts floating in slow orbit around a molten core. The energy signature coming off the node was steady, almost bored, like it had been waiting a long, long time and was mildly irritated to be awake again. Why is it always ancient, galaxy-ending tech? Dax muttered as he leaned over the rail near the main view screen. Why can't we ever stumble into a derelict hot spring or a floating waffle bar? Kari, beside him, grinned. I'd settle for a haunted karaoke lounge at this point. Sierra, ever unamused, added from her station. The node is broadcasting across at least 4 spectra. One of them appears to be tonal. Like a melody? Dax asked. Like someone trying to sing Morse code through a violin string while underwater. Comforting, Dax said. Nothing says peace like cursed harmonics. Aileen stood behind the helm, silent, eyes fixed on the readout. She hadn't said much since identifying the Concord node, but when she did speak, it was like she was decoding memories from another life. The node was built to compel peace, she said, but not through consent, through synchronization. It didn't negotiate, it harmonized opposing minds, made them aligned. Dax gave her a sidelong glance. That sounds horrifying. It was efficient, she replied. That's even worse. They approached slowly, cloaking their emissions, masking signatures. The ship's hull subtly adjusted its reflectivity, blending into background radiation. The Viridian lance became a shadow among shadows, watching the node from just beyond the orbital debris field. As they watched, something changed. A second signal began to rise beneath the first, low, erratic, full of static. A rogue frequency, out of phase with the node's broadcast. It wasn't trying to harmonize, it was trying to resist. Kari sat up straighter. That's not the node. That's someone else. Syrah's fingers danced across her console. Another ship. Nearby. Camouflaged. Not very well. Looks like old Gelth tech, repurposed and badly repaired. Dax blinked. Another Concord survivor? Aylin's gaze sharpened. Or a scavenger playing with something they don't understand. Yelai entered quietly from the rear lift, combat harness gleaming faintly in the dim light. They're trying to override the node's sequence. That's a terrible idea, Dax said. On a list of galactically bad ideas, that one's flirting with the top 5. Would you like me to list the others? Nibbles offered cheerfully from his perch near the ceiling. Not unless it includes a recipe. Incomplete entry found. Fusion waffles with quantum berries. Save that for later. Suddenly the ship rocked. Not a hit, more like a ripple in space itself. Like gravity had hiccuped. Monitors flared, and alarms lit up in cautious yellow. The node's pulse shifted tone, growing sharper. Angry. They triggered something, Syrah said. The node's entering defense mode. Alan looked grim. It will purge anything unsynchronized. Yelai was already issuing orders. Brace for impact. Power to shields. Evasive maneuvers. Dax stood. Can we reach the other ship? They're within comms range, but unlikely to respond while mid-meltdown, Syrah replied. Then we go in, he said. Yelai turned toward him, eyebrow rising like a sunrise. We're charging into an ancient weapons danger zone? For strangers? Dax nodded. That's exactly our brand. The shuttle prep was fast. Dax, Yelai, and Kari boarded, while Aline uploaded a neural patch into the shuttle's interface, a kind of failsafe that, according to her, Might prevent instant disintegration if the node decides we're not friendly. Might. Kari strapped in, eyes wide. Is this how hero stories start? No, Dax said, settling into the pilot seat. This is how they end, with ironic obituaries. They launched. The stars bent slightly as the shuttle glided through unstable space. The node loomed ahead, its structure like a rotating flower of black metal, petals lined with crystalline veins pulsing with unreadable code. The scavenger ship was closer than they'd thought. It was small, awkwardly retrofitted, with panels that looked glued on by someone with a vendetta against symmetry. Its lights flickered erratically. It was slowly being drawn toward the node like a fly into a beautiful, terrible flame. Looks like it tried to hack the interface, Yali muttered. Failed, and now it's caught in some kind of resonance field. Dax brought the shuttle in close. Can we pull them out? Kari scanned. We can latch them with a tether, but the field's destabilizing. The longer we stay, the more likely we're next. Great, Dax muttered. Okay, short visit. Say hello, grab our new disaster friends, and run before something starts vibrating existentially. Yali launched the tether. It clamped onto the scavenger hull with a satisfying thunk. Inside, they saw motion. Two figures scrambling to respond. No uniforms. Just patchy armor and expressions that said, "What have we done?" As the shuttle began to pull away, the node pulsed again. Space bent. For a split second, Dax saw something inside the Concord structure. A shape, almost humanoid, watching them. Then it was gone. Captain? Kari said, pale. Did you... I did, he said quietly. Yeli checked the readouts. The node didn't fire. It let us go. Alan's voice came through the comm. It recognized me. Dax stared out at the shimmering thing behind them. Then let's make sure we give it no reason to change its mind. The Viridian Lance cruised away from the Concord node under silent burn, her hull still faintly shimmering from the residual harmonic echoes. Whatever ancient signal had once pulsed with command and control was now dimmed, quieted, not deactivated, but dormant, as if watching the retreat with a kind of vast, mechanical patience. Dax stood on the bridge, hands folded behind his back, staring at the view beyond the transparent canopy. Space swirled with dust from a dead world. Stars blinked like cautious gods. And for once, everything was still. The scavenger crew, two wiry engineers with more rust on their armor than sense in their heads, had been decontaminated, mildly interrogated, and then politely threatened with cosmic embarrassment if they ever touched ancient Gelth tech again. They were now happily confined to a guest suite filled with pre-recorded lectures from Alan about the dangers of waking forgotten empires. One of them had started taking notes. Alan herself had spent the last several hours in the deep archives of the ship, interfacing with what remained of the Lance's original memory core. Her presence had restored long-buried subroutines, old maps, forgotten languages, entire diplomatic protocols last used before humanity had even developed stable lunar colonies. She emerged from the data chamber just as Dax was finishing his second attempt at tea. This time it tasted slightly less like herbal betrayal. Everything's quiet, he said, glancing her way. For now, Alan replied, the node will remain dormant, but it remembers. As do I. He gave her a look. You're not going to go full ancient ambassador on me, are you? She tilted her head. Would that be problematic? Depends. Do I get a hat? Alan blinked. Hat? You know, fancy, official, possibly feathered. Her lips curved, just slightly. No hat, just knowledge. Less fun, but probably more useful. Yeli joined them at the rail, silent as ever, but this time she gave Dax a brief nod, a gesture he hadn't seen when they'd first met. Respect, earned not by rank, but by surviving the kind of chaos that left lesser captains disassembled, emotionally and otherwise. The crew seems different, Dax said. They are, Yeli replied. You are. I've been called worse. You were once uncertain, now you lead. I still make terrible decisions. I just do it with more confidence now. Behind them, Kari was enthusiastically programming nibbles to project fireworks for a post-Concord non-explosion party, while Sierra repeatedly insisted that no such celebration existed in Gelth culture. Nibbles naturally disagreed. My database contains a section called Victory Vibes. Would you like to initiate bass mode? Dear stars, no, Syrah replied. Dax turned back to Aelin. What will you do now? Stay? Go find the other nodes? Build a new Concord and start diplomatic karaoke night? She looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time she seemed uncertain. This ship is part of me, and you are now part of it. Dax tried to process that without letting it go to his head. Are you saying you're staying? I am saying I am curious about what kind of future might grow from this strange collision of paths. He nodded. We're a weird crew, I'll give you that. Alan stepped forward, gently tapping the control panel. A hologram rose from the table. Old Gelth symbols, slowly rotating, translating midair. What's that? He asked. The original diplomatic charter of the Viridian Lance, she replied. Rewritten, updated, with room for improvisation. Dax smiled. I think that's my specialty. Later that night, he stood alone in his quarters, lights dimmed, a steaming cup of almost tea in hand. The room no longer felt sterile. A few mementos now dotted the shelves. Kari's hand-drawn battle-pudding sketch, a half-broken panel from the scavenger ship, even a plant from Medbay that Marin claimed could scream if overwatered. Dax hadn't tested it. Yet. He looked out at the stars, wondering if he would ever understand the full scale of what they'd stumbled into. He wasn't just commanding a ship. He was guiding a relic of peace through a galaxy built for war, with a crew that trusted him, mostly, and an alien diplomat who might very well be centuries old and just hadn't told him yet. Computer, he said softly. Record log. Captain Dax Renner. Mission update. There was a pause, then the ship's voice replied, smooth and gentle now, almost familiar. Recording. We didn't break the galaxy today. We didn't fix it either. But we made a dent. The Viridian Lance was built for harmony. We're still figuring out what that means, but I think we might just be the right kind of broken to make something better. Weird crew, weird ship, probably cursed AI, but it's mine. And for the first time, I'm not just surviving. I'm building something. He paused, then added with a small smile. End log. As the stars drifted silently by, the ship hummed, not with systems, but with something deeper. Not quite peace, but the promise of it. And for now, that was enough. Let me know if you'd like a story continuation, side stories, or even a spin-off about nibbles and victory vibes.